Welcome to Biographies TV. I'm your host, William McKee, and it's just an honor to be here with you in your living rooms on this day. As the rapper Jay-Z said, you could be anywhere in the world, but you came to be with us, and we really appreciate that. Let me start out with a bunch of shout-outs that we must give, because we really appreciate the collaborative effort that it takes to put shows like this on. And well, before I do this, let me also tell you, we have a legend in the building today on Biographies TV. You're gonna wanna tell a friend and tell a friend. We have none other than the basketball and administrative and coaching legend, Gene Banks, hashtag Duke University, hashtag Chicago Bulls, hashtag community, hashtag Philly. Philadelphia stand up. So you're gonna wanna see this show. And we're doing a biography like we always do on his life. How did he become this legendary figure with such great laudatory achievements? So stick and stay with us. First of all, we had to shout out the one and only, the Jigger Man, J.E. McCoy, and Osmotic Multimedia. We really thank him for what he's done over the years as a pillar and kind of a curator of the culture of this community. Big thanks to J.E., Tony Brown, Kevin Moraney, the whole crew at Osmotic Multimedia. And we also got to thank one of the founders. One of my favorite channels in the whole wide world is now, always has been, is Spot TV. And we have none other than Val in the building, working with us today, doing her magic, and we thank Spot TV today. Check out Spot TV if you want to be entertained and informed. That's where you should go. That's where I've been going, and I've been blessed by it. Thank you to her and her whole team, and her gutter half, and everybody there. So, and thank you to our supporter, Victorious Visions Art and Apparel, that blessed me with this great hat today. With their t-shirts, hats, paint parties, and things that they do. Big shout out to James Raleigh and the people at Victorious Visions Art and Apparel. And big thanks to Roz, who was communicating with you, Gene, and on the logistics of the show. Roz Simpson, she helped us out a great deal too. Thank you to her for that. So, if there's anybody I missed, I'm sure I'll think of it before the show is over. But we got to jump into this legendary guest that we have in the building today. Like I said, we have the legend, Gene Banks, in the building. So, Gene, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you and your busy schedule. Appreciate you.
Well, I have to appreciate you. And as people don't know, well, they will know right now, you are family. You are a cousin to me from the McKee family, right, which my late wife, Isabel Johnson, is from that tribe, and we call the clan, and it's a pleasure to be able to do that and see the great things that you've been doing, and it's a pleasure to be here on your show. Yeah,
well, thank you. First cousin Belle.
That's right.
And Aunt Connie, my dad's sister, and we salute you for just the role you've played in the family, just being so supportive. People know Gene Banks, the worldwide star. They may not know Gene Banks, who has just been a pillar in the home and just done so much for us. So humbly, on behalf of the family, appreciate you for that and just the work you've done with them as well. So family, let's get into it, because the moment we put a trailer out saying that we were going to have it, we just got flooded with emails and calls with questions about your life and how you put that masterpiece together of a career. So, let's take it back to Philly. Let's take it back to Philadelphia. Philadelphia style, as they say. So before we started taping, we talked a little about it. Where were you born in Philly? What part of Philly were you reared in?
Well, before I do anything else, and I know most people do this, but before you do anything else, I got to give honor to God.
Oh, please.
Jehovah.
Thank you.
Mind Jehovah for directing my life, because we always do some things, sometimes stupid things. And thankful for His mercy and His goodness that He forgives us for some of these things we do. And
Amen.
He has forgiven me many times over. And I apologize to anybody that I may have caused hurt or pain to. And I'm thankful to God's grace and mercy that He's allowed me to still be this way. But and moving on, people thought more so that I was born in West Philadelphia, but more so in South Philadelphia. And you want to the dynamics. Kevin Hart's from North Philadelphia, so you see that type of abrasiveness and the energy. That's North Philadelphia. Okay. Will Smith and myself, so I'm from the West Philadelphia side, and that's a different type of energy. Not that, forget the slap, okay, but and then you got South Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, North Philadelphia. But we were born in, I was born in South Philadelphia, and my mother, my brothers and sisters, we all down in that area. We moved several times because it was hard times back then, and then. Honestly, we started from the projects. Mm-hmm. We lived in the projects. It was called Bartram Village, and that's when projects were supposed to be nice or whatever. But mom was making maybe $25 a week, if that much. My dad was just coming out of the Navy, and we lived in the projects. And then we moved over here and there. Mom did, and Dad did the best that they could, and for us it was wonderful. But then they divorced and separated. Went their separate ways, and then my mom remarried, and the guy that she married was Walt Williams. And here's a tidbit for everybody, which is powerful to the point that Sherman Hemsley, the great actor for the Jeffersons, was my stepdad's first cousin. So we saw him a lot in our kitchen, you know, and in our kitchen we had what you say, you know, back then they had the surplus lines. Remember you used to stand in line, I don't know if they had it in North Carolina, but they had the surplus cheese and all that stuff. Right. I was to hold my mom's hand, and we were in those lines, you know, with the cheese and all that stuff. But what's interesting is that he would be in our house eating breakfast and stuff. And
Sherman
Hemsley, yeah.
George Jefferson.
George Jefferson.
Okay.
So and that was really intriguing because back then in South Philadelphia they had bars. They called, in the South, they call them juke joints. Right. But in South Philadelphia, North, they call bars. Mm-hmm. Up here, they call pubs. So there's and they would go and sing. You know, we saw guys like the Delphonics and all these guys raised around all these guys and singing these little bars. So I was young. I mean, we didn't know it. We just knew that was the way of life. But we saw these guys coming up, and it was amazing to be a part of that. But and life was hard, but we were young, we didn't know it. We just went along with everything.
Wow, so it's safe to say this show is moving on up.
Yes, it is. Well, to answer that was, my stepdad worked as a window washer. Mm-hmm. And if you see the clothespin building right by City Hall in Philadelphia, there was 2 huge buildings there. And he worked for a Jewish guy named Rubenstein. Rubenstein was going to retire, and he gave my stepdad the contract to that building. Interesting. Which means it gives us more money. So we moved from South Philly to West Philadelphia, which West Philadelphia was more at one time was a Jewish community, more different than South Philadelphia. And that's how we wound up moving to West Philadelphia. And like you said, moving on up, that was part of that case.
Wow, if you've just tuned in, this is Biographies TV, Portraits of Biography, we call it as well. And we're here with the legend, Gene Banks, hashtag Chicago Bulls great, Duke University, known as Coach K's first megastar, San Antonio Spurs, and coached and sold into so many communities, Biographies TV. So that kind of describes the soil that you were planted in. Mm-hmm. South Philadelphia, then West Philadelphia. On the playground is where you probably spent most of your days. So this is your environment. So kind of starting from the back, you become this megastar. Was the basketball seed posited in you from what you just described? Was there some coach, a family member that gave you basketball?
My dad. My dad never really has gotten the credit for doing what he did. And he always said to me...
Why is that?
It's hard to say. Because, my dad and mom separated. And then he lived in West Philadelphia. Matter of fact, I lived with him through my junior high school years. Okay. Went back and lived with my dad for 3 years. And then all of a sudden, we had a discussion. He talked about he was moving some things, and I moved back with my mother. So when I moved back with my mother going into high school, we didn't lose touch. But my dad said to me this. He says, "I've done my will. I've done my deed. What God wants me to do. Now you move on." I didn't understand what he meant by that. And I'm not just telling us this is what happened. Wow. So I moved back with my mom. You got to remember, I went back to my dad's, and my stepdad didn't really like that too much. You know, so me coming back to my mom's, he wasn't really receptive to that. Wow. but it was all God's plan. My dad says this is all God's plan. I didn't understand what that all meant. But I moved back to my mom's. The day I went back to my mom's, the first day, I'm going, my dad's dropped me off. We hear this music, it's jamming. And we pull up to Sunday. We pull up to the house looks like it's moving, it's bouncing. I go to my house, to my mom's house, going back, moving back. They have a church in the basement. Now my dad and I, we didn't go to church a lot. We prayed, we believed in God and all that, but we didn't go to church a lot those 3 years. But I'm going back to my mom's house, and I go down the basement, there's pews. There's an altar, my aunts are two evangelists.
There it is, Banks gets off the shot. It's in! Banks broke perfectly for the task. Give Kenny Denard credit for being able to hit the open man. Some kind of play.
So, hashtag black teachers, hashtag all teachers. But just to hear you talk about that community of educators. Mm-hmm. So you guys had pedagogical laboratories that were organic, that were sowing into people like you. So a teacher would pull you aside and edify you in that way. So as you matriculated up through high school, mm-hmm. you didn't have academic concerns like too many of our ball players of where would you qualify?
Well, the thing was there were certain teachers, black teachers, but you always had. I had that one that saw me more than a basketball player, and they jump in me.
Right.
And when I say jump in me, it was serious, and I was very fortunate to have that on every level, from grade school, Mrs. Place, to junior high school, Mrs. Fuller. And both of them have passed into high school, Dr. Detweiler. It was like Dr. Detweiler made me, says, you're going to come to my house and we're going to tutor you on Saturday. I was like, I ain't trying to come to your house on Saturday, man. I'm in high school, man. And he would grab me by my throat. And he said, you're going to be over here. I mean, they would make it so that they look at you. You know how parents back in those days, if they looked at you, you ain't answer back.
Right.
You just did what they told you what to do.
Right.
And I'm not just saying this, but this is what I dealt with. This is how I was raised, with people looking at you and said, this is what you want to do, because it's the betterment of you, of people, black teachers, pushing me. If it wasn't for those three, I would have never been able to achieve coming to Duke University at that level.
You took me somewhere I didn't see myself going. This whole day has just been spiritual. That's the only way I can describe it. So I'm thinking about Tupac Shakur's poem, A Rose Growing Through Concrete. Mm-hmm. You're in this urban setting, and thanks to Jeff Bradshaw, Grammy-nominated trombonist that I met through Name Drop a little bit. Charles Whitfield, my next door neighbor, puts me with Malcolm Teasdale, with Brand Jordan. Meet Jeff Bradshaw. He's given us a window kind of into what Philly's like in that inner city piece. So we talked about Offset, the trappings that young people fall into when misguided. That rose going through concrete has to be protected. How did you avoid the toils and snares of the city of brotherly love, which can sometimes be oxymoronic, right?
I had brothers around me. I give respect to brother Mel Parker. He went to Westfield High School. We got connected, me playing recreational ball. It was my first time getting a job. I was like under his wing. He lived in the neighborhood, and he was that brother mentor. My oldest brother was in the Navy, so he was not effective for me for that situation. But guys like Mel Parker, Wally Rice, I had James Flint. James Flint ran the recreation center at Sherwood. James Flint is the father of the famous Bruiser Flint, who coached at UMass, who's now at University of Kentucky, assistant coach. Yeah. And Bruiser Flint used to sit on my bed and fix my shoes before we had games. So we're connected. I had those kind of mentors. I had mentors, man. That was Deacon Young from another church. When he had a church basketball league. It had nothing to do with my church, but I got involved with Deacon Young. He's now passed. He was in the great Sonny Hill. Sonny Hill had the Sonny Hill Beck League in Philadelphia. So I had a lot of mentors that were around me. The great Sonny Hill, he pulled me up, and I was very blessed to have these mentors around me put a foot in my behind or to raise me up to do some great things. So
it's sending me places I didn't plan on going.
Yeah,
so Sunny Hills League in Philly, the legendary league. You guys versus the Rucker.
We played the Rucker.
What's the best basketball environment? They say, what would you say?
Oh, there's no doubt we have to say the Sunny Hill Baker League.
We just got shut down in New York City. We're not going to be sure.
But that's a history you got to look at. But that Sunny Hill Baker League made us into respecting our community.
Yes.
Respecting us as men. Claude Gross, T. Shields, people like that.
The name.
These guys would always, when we walked in, we had to be respectful. And we were at Temple's Mechanical Hall, so they taught us when we walked in, respect the place. Don't throw trash here, no cursing. So I was raised at a time, oh man, that dude, you didn't answer back to those guys. They put but what they said was fruitful for us, and they were mentors that make us do the right thing.
So, wow, those names.
Yeah.
When we invoke those names, their legacy lives outside of that locale of Philadelphia. People hear that. So, we talked at a previous time about your neighborhood. I was working for the Phelps Stokes Fund at the time, and Reverend Leon Sullivan.
Yep.
Shout out to the OIC, and Val just talked about her connection and root there. Right in your neighborhood, Reverend Sullivan, for those who don't know, first African American to serve on Fortune 500 board of directors, who used to take, with the Africa Summits, takes African American leaders to Africa every other year. Phelps Stokes was a part of that, and there was a big oil deal going down the year we were there at the Kennedy Center. I look over across the room, and there you are. And there's my cousin over there that I never really got to know. And we're there to look at the transnational, international trade, and there we end up hanging together.
That's right.
And our spirits just connected. Reverend Sullivan was in your neighborhood, so you had a global. Talk about Reverend Sullivan and the role.
Reverend Sullivan was what you call our MLK in Philadelphia. He was our Martin Luther King. He was very strong in our communities with the OIC and feeding everybody and so forth. But it was more business than us teaching. He fought with the city council and all of them in Philadelphia about empowering black people businesses. And he was great at that. His daughters grew up when we were 14, 15, Hope Sullivan and so forth. We still have a connection to this very day. So I came up through an era of stuff like that. And we had Novella Williams, who lived next door to me, who was a civil rights type of person in Philadelphia. And I had all. I mean, God put a lot of unbelievable positive things around me to protect me. And here I go on to become the #1 high school player and go on to come to the South to resurrect a basketball program that was the worst in the conference. So, I mean, it's really interesting. And the great thing about it for me was I didn't know anything about the racism that was in the South, and I heard some stories. But when I got here, I didn't really experience so much racism, because when I came here, it was like the fanfare of me coming, #1 player coming to Duke, and all of a sudden,
#1 player in the entire country coming out of high school. And some people that were in your class that year are names like Bernard King.
No, Magic Johnson.
Magic.
That's in it. You stop right there. Magic.
You were rated over him.
Albert King,
I'm sorry, Albert King.
Albert King, the brother.
Yeah. So you're coming in on a different boat.
Yeah.
But no, let's back up just a taste. Let's back up just a taste, because we're going through your roots.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Roots Band, Philadelphia born and raised, Questlove, Black Thought, and those guys. So your roots, you matriculate through middle school. You got this tapestry of educators keeping you, and your parents, that instill the importance of that. You got this church in your basement. So your foundation is the church, literally.
Yeah. It was literally church every day, except for when I got, the one thing I say about church, basketball helped me get out of, we Pentecostal. Okay. So there's a church meeting, the Bible study on Wednesday, there's church meeting on Thursday, meeting on Friday. So it was like every day. And with church, there's different. I love all churches, but our church was like, when we left and got there 8 o'clock, we got back home by 8 o'clock. So basketball
first and second shift.
But the thing was, we didn't complain. You know, when Mama said you be there, you be there. Mama said you're gonna be for that, you be there. It wasn't no, we found that out, but when Mama said it, and that gave me a strong foundation. And then I had a sister, which is another story. See, my story is so complex. I had a sister who suffered spinal meningitis.
Wow.
And she got it when she was born and 2 years old, 2 or 3 years old. When she got it, I learned about spinal, when you tense up and when her legs cross, and she was like that for maybe 10 or 12 years. So my dad, that was one of the things where my dad and my mom had some difference. My dad felt blame he got the wrong medicine, but didn't have the spinal meningitis medicine, or you can check it, catch it before it happens.
Right.
So we dealt with that in our early age, and that helped with my humility. Because I was the only one that would go over to, we had her in our house for a while, but then we took her to a place in West Philly, that like a big house, like a hospital house, that housed all these kids. And when I would go with my mom, I was young, and these kids were in these beds, 3 levels, row house, but this was the little hospital of kids that were deformed, that had these situations that people had to do, and we had to keep her there to get the caring. And I was the only one of my brothers would go, because my brothers and sisters didn't want to go there.
Right.
But I went because my mom said my sister always smiled. She couldn't talk, but she could see. And she said, you got to go because you always make her smile. So when I go in there, and I was young, I would go around and mess with all the other kids in the cribs. And I didn't understand that they had deformities. I didn't understand they had retardation, things like that nature. And I would play with my mom's, feeding her, spending time. The nurse said, you cannot bring your son here anymore because he riles up all these kids in here. But they were just having fun, you know, and they would be, that's another story, but that was the beginning of my humility. And to be in there, and I didn't think of them as being deformed. They were just kids that didn't have this, and my mom always loved me going there to be a part of that. And I enjoyed being to see my sister for that part of it that I didn't understand. But I'm learning about humility. I just, you know, and she died when I was at Duke, my second year at Duke. She wasn't expecting to live past 11, but she died. She was a year behind me. So I was 18, 19, she was 17.
So when you hit the court, or the classroom, but when you hit the court, I imagine you were playing for her.
I was more so, it's not so much that as fact I was playing for almost all Philadelphia in my family.
Wow.
You know, because I was when I was in Philadelphia, I had so much fun playing basketball with the team I had. We were the number 1 team in the country too as well. And we always had community, you know, all the parents, and it was amazing. That was one thing. When I got to Duke later on, as we fast forward, the family and my sister played a major part that people didn't even know. They didn't even know that. They didn't know anything about that until the death came up, and I was about to miss a game. And Bill Foster was a coach then.
Yeah, Coach Foster.
And when the death was told, he told me to go home and handle this. My mom was all about, it's not about us being sad, we should be joyous. So they let me go home. The greatest thing I would say about Bill Foster, you know, how he got me, was he told me to go home, spend as much time as you need home, but the funeral, boom. We had to play NC State that night. He said, don't worry about that. When I got to Philadelphia, and we set up in a nice little small place, just a family. When I got into the funeral, this can be a little emotional, people don't understand my story. The guy that was sitting there in the front row, I'm not making this up, was Bill Foster. He had left from Duke. I left to come home.
Right.
When he had left and came all the way to Philadelphia, in a small area in South Philly with the funeral home there, with just a small line of sitting in the front seat. When I walked in the funeral, was Bill Foster with my family. And he caught a flame. He says, I'm going back to the tank. He said, you want to come back? And I told my mom, Mom said, no, you're going to go back, baby. She said, you know, this is a celebration. And I had to catch a flight to get back. I I'm changing in the car from the plane to go to Raleigh and to be to change with my uniform, my butt sticking all out in the car, getting ready to play this game. But I had to get back. My mom said, "No, baby, this is a celebration. Our baby's going home. She's good."
Wow.
But Bill Foster was there.
And we have to remember that at this time, the movements of Gene Banks, that was a news story.
Yeah.
Where you ate a hamburger. This was the and this is one of those shows. I don't have to use hyperbole.
Yeah.
You know, some people you have to build up, but no, you were actually a walking news story. And I got a question about, were you a target in your, you know, because a lot of these enigmatic athletic figures are a target. But you said something, Rod Simpson. I gotta do this because what we talked about earlier. He said Tink.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know, I remember that in my household because my brothers used to say that they called you that, but I never knew why.
People don't know. A lot of people know this story now, but my cousin gave me the name. It's more like a superhero type of thing.
Right.
So we'll save that for another segment, though.
Okay.
We're gonna save that because we're gonna do another segment.
Tinkerbell piece.
The Tinkerbell piece, because you know, I'll give you this part. It's like we said Bruce Wayne was Batman.
Right.
You know, who was Superman? Clark Kent was Superman.
Right.
Gene Banks, Tinkerbell. So that's what that whole thing was all about. One thing that I found that was interesting was that no opponents never chided me. I mean, guy 6'8", muscle. You had the Duke fans; they were the worst at it, but no one ever chided me about that. It's amazing, and no one calls me by my name in Philadelphia. Duke, even Ralph Sampson, Phil, and we're connected. No one calls me by Gene. It's all Tinkerbell. But it's a history behind how that name was, and it's a superhero type of thing, and I ran with it, and now they've got books and stuff on that stuff. It's crazy.
Wow, I'm blown away over here. If you've just tuned in, this is Biographies TV / Portraits of Biography. We're here with the legendary, enigmatic figure, Gene Banks, basketball legend, coaching legend. Now, I'm gonna just dovetail back. I mean, if you're an opposing team, you know that term, you don't give the other team bulletin board material. You were not the bear to poke at that time. I wouldn't have joked about your nickname either. I'm old enough to remember that you were not the person to upset because you would pay for that later on. So did the neighborhood protect you?
They did. I think the neighborhood we were very protective of each other. I mean, around the corner lived Evelyn Champagne King, you know, and here she is in the beginning of her. She wasn't no big star, but her and her mother worked at Gamblin Hofstown, and they were cleaning bathrooms. We knew her. Phyllis Hyman was living in Philadelphia at the time, and from Pittsburgh. So I knew them, and the guys at Delphonics, Blue Magic and all of them. They all were in the neighborhood, so we all kind of had barbecues and stuff together. My mom always cooked, and everybody always came to the house.
Michael Jordan in the front court.